IVM.
Have you ever wondered why women don't do more crime? Well, we're here to tell you. There's misconduct all the time. Women are thieves and murderers.
That's gross misconduct.
Con artists, money launderers.
Criminal misconduct.
Financial fraud that's hard to track.
Takes some planning, but still misconduct.
Even breaching a contract.
Well, that's more civil though.
It's misconduct. Misconduct. We tell you all about women that suck. Things that make you say, what the? It's misconduct.
Hello, and welcome to Misconduct. I am Raghavi.
And I'm Nisha. And today's special lady is Ruksana Sultana. She's a pompous Delhi socialite from the 70s who obviously did some terrible stuff.
Yes, let's get into the terrible stuff. But before that, I want to sort of paint you a picture of what we're looking at in terms of who Ruksana was, where she lived, what the general vibe was like about the time that we're talking about. So imagine Nisha, or may I call you Ruksana.
Oh.
You live in the 1970s among Delhi's political royalty. This is like the peak of Indira Gandhi's reign. Her son, Sanjay Gandhi, he's just sort of coming into his own. He's having his own little growth spurt. And you, Ruksana Sultana, you're a socialite. You live this glamorous life in Lutyens, Delhi. And you live this life of parties, of champagne. You wear silk saris everywhere, financially favorable alliances. It's just, you're surrounded by just like affluence, okay?
Ooh, fancy. I'm so into it.
It is very, yeah, okay. It gets worse from now.
Oh, God.
So one day, Sanjay Gandhi just walks into your life. He becomes your friend, okay? You guys are BFFs. You go on long drives together. You get ice cream in the middle of the night. You're having a great time, just a wonderful time.
Okay.
And then one day, Sanju walks up to you and he says, I need a favor. And you say, okay, because you're a people pleaser. And he gives you a very simple task. He says, figure out a way to get India's population problem under control.
Wow.
That's all. It's just this little tiny policy thing. That's all, okay? Except he wants you to do this in the heart of Old Delhi.
What do you mean by Old Delhi?
So, Ruksana, Sanju says, it'll play really well with the largely Muslim population of Old Delhi if you are the one who goes to talk to them about family planning. So you go to Old Delhi, you round up all the men and women that you can find and you tell them, you say, population control is super important. You tell them, get surgically sterilized, okay? But Ruksana, you have to get it done. You can't not get it done. Whatever it takes, whether they like it or not, whether they say, hey, I don't want to be sterilized, you still get it done. So what do you do, Ruksana?
I would do nothing. I would be like, thank you for your friendship. Goodbye. I'm going home. Okay. But that's not what Ruksana Begum decided to do. Ruksana Begum was what her name was when she had to do all of these horrible tasks. But yeah, she rounded up about 13,000 men in Old Delhi. Vast majority of them were Muslim. She made them get vasectomies. And for those that said no, well, they were sterilized anyway.
Sterilization, by the way, and this is really serious, you guys, they're medical methods. Sometimes they're surgical as well. They basically leave women or men unable to reproduce. For men, very often these are vasectomies. For women, these are tubectomies. So it's a very quick surgery. I've heard it takes no more than 20 to 30 minutes. It's not particularly all that invasive either. But the problem is, more often than not, they're not reversible. So essentially what you're saying is, hey, you can no longer have kids and you cannot reverse this process either. So what this essentially means is, if Ruksana got a bunch of people sterilized without their consent, she basically stripped them of their right and their ability to have children.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. But on that terrifying note, let's take a little break. And on the other side, we'll find out more about India's population problem, Indira Gandhi's shenanigans around this time, The Emergency, my personal favorite, and Sanjay Gandhi's personal agendas around this time, just sort of context setting for everything. And we'd also see how our lovely lady Ruksana fits into all of this.
Welcome back from the break. So before we get into Ruksana and all of the terrible things she did, Raghavi, can you just take like a quick minute to let us know what was happening in the 70s and how did this environment come to be?
Of course, Nisha, thank you so much for that. So the 70s essentially was ridiculous political turmoil. To put it very, very briefly, this is the time of the emergency. So what exactly happened is around June 1975, Indira Gandhi supposed to have won the general elections, except her opponent, Raj Narain, he took her to court. He claimed that she had used government funds and public servants to campaign for the election, all of which are essentially election malpractice. The courts agreed. They said, yes, woman, what are you doing? They said, your election to the Lok Sabha is voided. They said, girl, you are barred from running for public office for 6 years. They said it. They said, girl. Yes. It's in the judgment. Sure. The Supreme Court also approved this. They said, yes, the Allahabad High Court is right. But what the Supreme Court also said was that she could be in power till the end of her term. This did not sit well with a lot of opposition parties. There were nationwide protests that were being called for her resignation, to which Indira Gandhi was like, oh yeah, well, boom, take an emergency.
What a wonderful way to handle this situation.
I mean, it's nothing unusual considering what we know about Indira Gandhi. But I actually don't know much about what it was like to live during the emergency. I've asked my parents and they were just like, I don't know, I was 15. I have no idea.
Yeah, same here. Even my parents have like no idea. My dad says that the buses and trains were running on time, but that's pretty much all he knows. But of course, they were like deep down south in Madurai, so probably it wasn't as bad.
Yeah, I suppose not. But then like essentially to look at this from the lens of just how bad it got after that, because when we look at not just specific to the emergency, even before that, even after the independence movement and everything, India focused a lot of its efforts on multiple things. There was welfare, there was improved hygiene, modern medicine, just a bunch of things that countries should just do for their citizens. But what happened for India is that it led to this huge population boom. And I'm not saying that there wasn't any poverty. In fact, the Congress government, one of their most famous slogans that they still use today is Garibi Hatao. Like it's just, that's just what they say. But it wasn't really a poverty situation, but people were just procreating like crazy by this point.
Yeah, our population basically went from like 250 million in the 1920s to a whopping 560 million by the 70s. That's more than double.
That's insane. And obviously, the government was concerned about this. But the thing is, you can't get rid of people that were already born. Unfortunately, you have to get them before they are born. So, I don't know. I mean, it just makes sense that you have to really make that effort to put family planning in place, right? That's just really important by this point. And India had a lot of very random but really ineffective measures that were sort of like roaming around. There was one of the health ministers had essentially just told women, you have to monitor your own safe days.
Oh, wow.
You just have to do it. Like essentially, I think we all know that monitoring your safe days to prevent pregnancy is incredibly like untrustworthy. Please don't do it. They would also just distribute condoms and not tell you how to use it. Just take it. That's it. And then all of this ties in with the fact that there was a lot of corruption around that time. The allocated funds that were put together in all the 5-year plans and stuff, there was just no real benefit we were seeing from those things.
Yeah, so let's also quickly just get into the mind of Sanjay Gandhi around this time, now that we have all of this context. So at this time, Sanjay felt like he was the messiah that would solve the country's population problem. I have no idea where this confidence came from. I guess it just comes from the fact that he was a man.
Aha, that's it. I get it.
That's it. Yeah. And this is all very beautifully covered in this book called The Sanjay Story, From Anand Bhavan to Amethi by Vinod Mehta, published in 1978. And I think a lot of our research and a lot of our information comes from this book.
Right.
Because Sanjay had like zero knowledge or expertise and he decided to take up family planning as his chosen activity. And the magical cure that he devised for this was sterilization. Right? That is the solution. And since the emergency was already imposed, like you had mentioned, and a ton of civil liberties were just suspended, it became very easy for the Gandhis to just implement whatever policies that they thought was, this is necessary, right? So looking at it from like a PR perspective, this means like, oh, we need a lot of good old-fashioned propaganda.
Right.
That's one way to do it. But then they took it like one step further and they were like, no, we will also withhold land, homes, rations, money. And then even to another extreme, they went ahead and they were like beating citizens up.
That's right. I think like it's also really important to remember that the entire phase of the emergency effectively became a police state. Civil liberties were suspended. The press was censored to a great extent. There are loads of cases that have come out of this. And Indira Gandhi herself had put in many, many policies that essentially made her almost like a queen of sorts, with no real democratic process at this point. And that's really the overall like sort of context we're looking at here in terms of what the environment was like at the time. But why is Ruksana important to this story? Ruksana did play a very important role. She was initially sent out to convince women to get sterilized. And it made sense for them at the time because a lot of men didn't want to get sterilized because they were afraid. So they were worried that they would die on the operating table or that their wives would just leave them or, become promiscuous or something.
Sure.
And this is a very rational thing. They thought that their other organs would get affected or they would have infections, all valid reasons.
Absolutely.
So Sanjay Gandhi, he could have made some effort to make the family planning setup sort of more education-based. But who has the time for that? I mean, we have a country to run. So he just said he's going to give up the responsibility of family planning, specifically in Delhi, to a bunch of his very close aides. And one of them happened to be our lovely lady, Ruksana.
Good for her. No, actually, no.
Good for her. No, actually, this ends really badly.
No, the thing is, I think like she is the perfect person to have done something like this. And I think maybe, why don't you let's look into Ruksana's background a little bit more and we'll understand why.
Yeah, let's look into it a little more. There's another book I read for this bit, actually. There are several books that cover the emergency and Sanjay Gandhi's time, but very few really focus on Ruksana herself. But this is one book which is called 24 Akbar Road, A Short History of the People Behind the Fall and the Rise of the Congress. This is by Rashid Kidwai. It was published in 2011 sometime. And it's sort of about all the major personalities that were involved, Indian National Congress Party. And of course, Ruksana was one of them. So Ruksana was born as Meenu Bimbit. So she was born to Captain Mohan Bimbit, who was Hindu, and Zarina Haq, who was a Muslim. So she had the best of both worlds growing up. They were very affluent. Her family was ridiculously rich. She was also the niece of Begum Para, who is an actress who was very popular in the 50s and 60s. And Ruksana has been, in all the pieces that we've read, apparently she's just a really beautiful woman. Like she was just a gorgeous, stunning person. And as a teenager in college, she had met General Shivendra Singh Vick, and they married in 1934. And they went on to have a daughter together. General Singh, by the way, he's also very well connected. He is the nephew of the author Khushwant Singh, which is where I first learned about how the birds and the bees work.
Oh, God.
Yeah, don't learn there. Learn it from your teachers. That's just fair. But eventually the couple, Ruksana and General Singh, they were not really compatible. They had very different interests and personalities. And the marriage just sort of fizzled out after a point.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you mentioned Ruksana's daughter. Just put a pin on that. That has to come up sometime later.
Yes, it will.
So Ruksana, now freshly divorced at 31, she decides she wants to be like 30, flirty and thriving. So she started off a boutique in Connaught Circus in Delhi. Ruksana was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. So obviously her shop sold high-end diamond jewelry.
Of course.
So it was around this time that she would meet Sanjay Gandhi. Some reports say that she charmed Sanjay Gandhi quite early on and they bonded. They would get ice cream together and she would call him her ice cream buddy. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean.
I think it means they ate ice cream sometimes. Don't read too much into this, Nisha.
Terrible name. No, within a year of meeting Sanju, she started calling herself an activist and a social worker. So, and she was just constantly around him. So a lot of like Sanjay Gandhi's close family and aides didn't really like her too much. That like actually many accounts say that nobody really liked her. Menaka Gandhi, who is Sanjay Gandhi's wife, found her annoying and said that Ruksana talks a lot of rubbish.
Of course.
And there's one more which is particularly sad for me. Indira Gandhi once called her scatterbrained, which is so mean.
You know what? I was just thinking about this. Sorry, what's particularly sad about this bit is the fact that Indira Gandhi is not some normal mom who's just like meeting your friend and she's like, oh, I don't like this girl. Indira Gandhi is the first female prime minister of India. Okay. And while being a prime minister, she has the other sexism stuff to also deal with. It's not like she's just, there's a lot of stuff going on in her head. But she took the time out to meet Sanjay Gandhi's friends and be like, hey, this particular one, I don't like her. So it kind of shows how particularly annoying Ruksana likely was.
Yeah, but she was also like a determined social climber. Okay, so all of this, like, she was like, I don't care what you talk about me. I am going to like persevere and make something out of this, right? So Ruksana soon like unofficially appointed herself as Sanjay's liaison to the Muslim community of Delhi. This is probably the reason why everyone kind of tolerated her because she had that kind of connect. And to help her with the transition into the community, she started going by the name Ruksana Begum, right? And she frequented Old Delhi a lot.
Oh, actually, let me. So, Old Delhi, just for the folks that don't know it, or Purani Delhi, it sort of runs along the Yamuna River. You would know it today as the area that covers these major landmarks like the Jama Masjid, Red Fort, Chandni Chowk. Just a lot of the best places to eat are in Delhi.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Old Delhi is. It's just that whole area of Delhi.
Yeah, and I think this helps us kind of understand the stark difference between Ruksana's world and that of the people of Old Delhi. Because this girl, she was the one who was, I say girl, she's obviously a woman.
Yes.
She was like living in silks and diamonds. But the people of Old Delhi probably never seen that sort of affluence, right? And they couldn't understand it. But obviously, this didn't stop Ruksana from making some really, really bad PR missteps. I think Ruksana would often frequent these areas in Old Delhi, especially around Jama Masjid, as you mentioned, in like bright silk saris, low-cut blouses, just like dripping in diamonds and wearing giant round pink spectacles. I mean, the spectacles sound kind of cool now, but in context, it just seems a little insensitive. She would also carry like a kerchief with her, which was soaked in perfume because she doesn't want to deal with the smells of Old Delhi.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll be very honest. Old Delhi. Old smelly. Old Delhi does not smell amazing, but just smells of like a lot of amazing food and people, and it's just where a crowded space is, man. That's just all it really smells of. But what she smells of elitism. That's what this is.
She does. I mean, I get it. I get that the Yamuna River was running there and all of that. Maybe that brought in some smells, but this is ridiculous. I mean, there's one thing to be born into that sort of culture and like maybe want to maintain a certain decorum. I guess that's okay. But it's a different kind of disgusting when you look down upon everyone else and actively demean them, right? Which is what she was all about.
Yeah, actually, I was going to do this a little later, but let's just kind of put this in together now. This really reminds me of the book that you mentioned earlier, the Sanjay story. Like I said, it had a lot of first-hand accounts of the author meeting Ruksana and following the emergency and stuff. Then the author describes her in a very specific way, and I want to quote this part of it.
Yeah.
So Vinod Mehta calls Ruksana an engaging, articulate and intelligent woman who doesn't mind being in the news. She has a slightly 19th century attitude towards the lower classes, which is compounded of a genuine desire to help, a readiness to blame poor people for their own conditions, and an inclination to serve the public by ordering them about.
And that's perfect. I think that's the most apt description of Ruksana. No one could have put it better. And obviously he would have that kind of description to give about her because he's like hung out with her a bunch.
That's true. And I think there's a great note to sort of start on how Ruksana got into all of this.
Yeah.
Because it's high time. We've done talking about, her personality. We should really get into what she really did. The thing is, she just sort of walked up to Sanjay Gandhi one day and she said, "What can I do for you?" Which is when Sanjay Gandhi had said, "You are a Muslim. go into the walled city. Walled city is what Purani Delhi was also known as. So Ruksana's most important task to begin with was essentially to motivate this massive Muslim population of Old Delhi to give in to sterilization. So Ruksana would go into parda houses and she would ask women how many children they had and if they would consider sterilization, what kind of sterilization they would consider, those sorts of things.
It kind of gets me thinking about the kind of person that she is. Like, she's going by her name Ruksana Begum, and we all know why. She's using her religion to manipulate these unsuspecting women. And like, her Sanju gave her this task, and she's just willing to do it, whatever it takes, sink however low she must. And she just does it.
That's a great point, but there's something else that I just realized. You consistently call him Sanju.
Yeah, I know.
It's really unsettling. At least just go with Sanjay. I don't know what's...
No, you said I'm Ruksana at the beginning of this episode and now I can't stop.
Oh, fine. That's my fault.
Yes.
Any case, Ruksana, let's talk about how you handled this situation.
Oh God, no.
So the thing is, all of the women in the city had some very genuine questions for you, Ruksana. And what you ended up... Well, in any case, what Ruksana ended up doing was she didn't really listen to any of these people. So they would ask her questions like, would the operation hurt? How long would the whole thing take? Would it reverse itself? All, questions you should ask your doctor,
Fair,
so you can provide informed consent. But the thing is, Ruksana didn't know the answers to any of these questions. Madam was a jewelry designer. She had no real experience in public health and sanitization. So she didn't know the answers to these questions. She didn't bring any material with her. She didn't even bring a nurse. Wow. Nothing. No, nobody. So the people didn't trust her. And what started off as a campaign that could have just been like a convincing, like an education campaign, didn't really work out because she didn't put in that effort. So the sterilization drive was a phenomenal failure, which is when Sanjay Gandhi was like, guys, we need to go in hard. We need to pick up sterilizations and we need to be forceful about it now.
Yeah, so this is the point where we actually start to hear the stories of forceful sterilization. By June 1976, the states from UP all the way to Orissa were all like knee-deep in sterilization camps. It even came to be known as the vasectomy belt. It was that bad. And on a single day in October 1976, around 9,500 sterilizations were recorded in just Gujarat.
That's right. And the thing is, there's a lot here in terms of legalities. And it's really important to remember that, and I'm going to say this very simply, I don't want this to be considered controversial or anything, but just remember that forcing a human being to undergo surgery to stop them from reproducing, that's kind of very illegal.
Is it though?
It is. It's not okay morally and also very not okay according to a lot of regulations, including the Indian Penal Code. In general, harming someone in any manner without their harming someone generally is terrible. To do that with the intention of sterilizing them obviously is another level of this. But it's not just a case of it being a criminal wrong. The fact is in this case, what we are talking about, the government was forcing people to do this. So what happened is that your constitutionally granted fundamental rights now come into play. And as recent as 2016, because this is a problem that is still happening in 2016, the Supreme Court of India had held that the right to life and liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution, it also applies to the exercising of reproductive rights, which means if a person is going to be sterilized, it can only happen with their informed consent, and it should be completely free of coercion. Again, non-controversial opinion, the government cannot force you into it.
Yeah, but obviously Ruksana and all of Sanjay's buddies took none of this into consideration. This is also like a clear contrast between how all of the other aides of Sanjay Gandhi looked at the program versus how Ruksana did it. Most of Sanjay Gandhi's friends were a bit covert about what they did. Like, they would issue circulars to schools and government institutions telling employees that their promotions would be affected if they had more than 2 kids.
Right.
But Ruksana herself was a bit more brazen about all of this. She had power at this point, right? And she was very, very willing to use it. It became very obvious when you see her methods and the things that she did after that. Ruksana was also extremely delusional. I don't know if the power got into her head and that's what happened, but maybe she just was like a delusional girl. Who knows? She ran like half a dozen camps around Jama Masjid area. One of them was called Dojana House. When questioned about this house, saying that, hey, is this place really safe or what's going on there? She just dismissed that any wrongdoing was happening here.
Right.
Once when asked about it, she even brought like a bunch of rejected sterilization applications and she said, see, I didn't ask everyone to get the operations. Only those who want to do it, only they are coming. But if you take a look at any of those rejected applications, they were just like of women who couldn't already like bear children or those who had hit menopause or something like that. Like, oh, thank you for not doing it to those people who anyway cannot have children.
That's really stupid. Like, this person can't bear kids anyway, but let's put them in our statistics.
Exactly.
It's like, it's really terrible because the kind of stuff that she says really trivializes the kind of stuff that people actually went through. Because one of the other examples in the book that I had read, the Sanjay story, of course, was about a woman who had lost her husband to tuberculosis. And this was because, so they had taken him to the hospital, but the hospital wouldn't admit him until he had a vasectomy because the hospital needed the numbers. By the way, a lot of these hospitals were being essentially forced to do this. There are loads of accounts. We'll give you guys some sources in our Substack and stuff, but there are loads of accounts of doctors talking about how they were essentially forced into doing this. Nobody really wanted to. And they had to make an active effort to allow some of these people to just escape. And this particular guy, this woman who had lost her husband, he was not allowed to be admitted until he had a vasectomy. He did eventually get sterilized because there's no other way he could have gone to the hospital. But the sterilization left him so weak because he had TB that he died. It was just awful. It didn't matter that he eventually had to get sterilized because he just freaking died. So that's the kind of stuff that is not really, when we look at Ruksana, she doesn't believe those things were wrong because you know what I mean?
That's the power and delusion that gets to you.
That's true. And you know what? This is quite heavy. Let's just take a little break. And on the other side, we'll maybe talk more about Ruksana's delusions. And maybe we can talk about whether justice was served, because that's the kind of stuff I like. So let's see if that happens. Welcome back to Ruksana Sultana's delusions. So there's a lot more to cover. She's an interesting person. So the Vinod Mehta's book that he mentioned earlier, the Sanjay story, it talks a lot about how Ruksana had accompanied him, as in he had accompanied Ruksana to the Jama Masjid. And essentially she had invited him to say, hey, I will prove to you that all the people in Delhi love me for what I'm doing there. Yeah. So Vinod Mehta was like, okay, she's volunteering information. What a doof. Let's go. And when they reached Old Delhi, she had a bunch of her henchmen sort of pull together some people and had them sit around Vinod Mehta. And she made them tell Mehta that she wasn't forcing anybody to do anything. And they just sat there and said, yeah. I mean, we're fine.
Okay.
And there was another time, this is when, so a series of riots had also broken out in Delhi because of what was happening. And one of the riots had broken out in this area called Muzaffarnagar. And Ruksana, to sort of calm people after this, she brought 2 imams with her. Imams are essentially Muslim priests. They're really revered sort of figures among certain Muslim populations. And people take a lot of like advice and sort of, how to like read holy books and stuff from them. And she brought these 2 imams and she declared to all the people there that these imams were volunteering themselves to receive sterilizations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just taking figureheads,
Yep. It's manipulative.
It is. Like, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Manipulative really is all it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And also remember, all this while, there were no real numbers that were coming out regarding deaths from the sterilization camps. So Vinod Mehta apparently said he had just heard of at least 300 to 500 people who had died at just Dojna House.
Oh, man.
And like I said, there are thousands of accounts of people being snatched from their homes and their workplaces, even the fields on the side of the roads, and just all forced to undergo operations. But through all of this, Sanju and Ruksana were the best of friends. And she refused to hear anything against Sanjay Gandhi. Like, there's one time when she was quoted as saying, this is ridiculous. She literally said, there is a huge slander campaign
Oh.
against me and Sanjay. They're just jealous of me. You can hear me flipping my hair
Yes.
as I
can.
say this, because I know she was flipping her hair. And during all of this, Sanjay Gandhi also maintained that the people weren't scared of the sterilization camps. He said, yeah, we could have done things a little better. We could have given some better aftercare. We could have removed stitches a little better, etc. But he never really accepted that the sterilization camps themselves were not working appropriately.
Wow. So I would like to, at this point, highlight one truly despicable thing that we came across. This is the DDA incident.
Mm-hmm.
So in April 1976, the Delhi Development Authority, or the DDA, made plans to redevelop an area in Old Delhi called Turkman Gate. But apparently when the DDA bulldozers started rampaging, some of the residents kind of went to Ruksana to ask for help. And she just said, well, too bad, I can't help you. So then they literally got down on their knees, they begged and pleaded, and finally she responded with a trade. She told them that, okay, all of the bulldozing will be stopped if they brought volunteers for the sterilization. Right? So this is proper coercion, but of course people's homes are at stake. So they agreed on 200 volunteers. But getting 200 volunteers is not that easy, right? So by the time the residents could get them together, the DDA had completely pulled down their homes. There was obviously a huge riot that broke out. People were angry and they were out for blood. And Ruksana and Sanjay Gandhi were apparently stuck in a house in Old Delhi during this time. And they escaped under burqas.
That's
It's
gross.
disgusting. It is. And I don't think she ever planned on helping any of these people. It's just some rubbish that she just said. Like,
Right.
And through all of this, the worst part is that the government fully supported her through all of these disgusting things that she did. In the same month, the Delhi administration issued a press release stating that Ruksana and the rest of Sanjay's study buddies had been instrumental in completing around 15,000 operations since the program started.
Okay, that's definitely extremely underreported. Dude, what we're talking about right now barely scratches the surface of anything. I really invite you guys to read more about this because it's really difficult. Like, especially when Nisha and I were reading for this episode and you were researching for this episode, some of these stories was so fundamentally upsetting. I remember it took me almost 2 weeks to really write this episode because I was just, it was just so jarring to read about some of this stuff, you know. There are so many undocumented accounts out there we will probably never know about because they weren't interviewed or, you know, they died, you know, because of infection or something.
Ruksana is a person with like a black heart. Like, I don't know, even if I think of like the worst thing that I've done in my life, it doesn't even come marginally close. Like, I don't know, what is the most terrible thing that you have done?
Okay, you just really put me on the spot there. We didn't discuss this beforehand.
So just
Nisha.
in your life.
In my life.
Just the worst thing.
I have used a Bangalore institution, which is actually Blossoms. It's a bookstore. I have used it in my favor to break up with 1 or 3 men.
3? Why?
Because I knew it'd be very quiet. It was quiet. They couldn't make a scene. So I've consistently used that. Listen, man, it happens. These things happen. I was a child. What have you done, Nisha? This is not cool to ask me this.
You know what? I feel like my thing will make you feel a little bit better. When one of my best friends asked me for the 6th book of Harry Potter, as I handed it to her, I said, Snape kills Dumbledore.
What?
I don't know why. I don't know why I did that. Like, I was so...
She hadn't read it before?
She hadn't read it, obviously. Yeah, I know. It's just horrible.
Bro.
I know. So just like in between you breaking up with boys at Blossom versus Ruksana Sultana, I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
No, you're closer to Ruksana. I'm really sorry. This is unforgivable. This is disgusting. I can't believe I'm friends with you. Yuck.
Oh, fine.
Fine. Oh, anyway.
Still not as bad as the sterilization program.
Yes, great. Thanks. Good segue. I was trying to figure out how to segue back into this. But yes, the sterilization program was pretty bad, guys. And the thing is, Ruksana, madam, do we know if she had her day in court? Well, let's look at numbers first, okay? It's sort of estimated that between 25th June 1975, which is when the emergency started, and March 1977, about 11 million men and women were sterilized. And 1 million women had intrauterine devices that were inserted. That's a form of birth control. The thing is, we don't know how many of these were with consent. We will never know. Ruksana herself was responsible for 13,000 of these vasectomies that were carried out in Old Delhi. That's an official number. So just think about how much worse it could be. And that's likely successful vasectomies. We're not talking about like cases where people might have died or had infections. And that's the thing. We will never know how many of these surgeries were botched. There are no official numbers surrounding this. Outside of like independent journalists working on this sort of stuff, we will never know how many of them died in pain or untreated infections and all these things. In fact, there is a comparison that an American journalist had done. Her name was Mara Hedendal. This really stood out for me because she said it was reported that 6.2 million Indian men were sterilized in a year, which was 15 times the number of people sterilized by the Nazis.
God, I don't think anyone ever wants to be compared to the Nazis.
That's true. It's not the best in terms of general comparisons, I would agree. But of course, it may not surprise you because this world is a cruel, cruel place. It will not surprise you to hear that Ruksana was never taken to court for what she did.
Of course, privilege.
Privilege out of the butt is what this is. No one was held accountable for this. Not Indira Gandhi. I mean, she was held accountable for other things, and I use the word accountable very loosely as well. Her baby boy, Sanju, was not accountable for this. None of the other aides of Sanjay Gandhi's either. Definitely not Ruksana. Instead, Madam got paid.
Wow.
Yeah, so that book you mentioned earlier, 24 Akbar wrote, it tells us that Ruksana was paid a sum of 84,000 rupees by the health ministry for motivating 80,000 men to opt for vasectomies.
Wow. Motivating. Yes, that's a nice way of putting it across.
I guess.
And like, honestly, while we were reading all of this is stuff that I realized that has never been covered in our history books, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we had Mughal Empire, British, independence, constitution, the end. That's it.
That's
India.
all. Over. We are now the best country in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing else needs to be covered.
The only thing I know about the emergency is because like when I was studying for media, I was doing my mass communications course, there were like a bunch of newspapers that published blank spaces as their editorials in protest, because of the press restrictions.
That's interesting.
But that's pretty much, that's all I know.
Yeah, that's actually all I know is because I studied law. Otherwise, I wouldn't know chunks of this either. In fact, I think unless you have some sort of a background in constitutional law or you actively put some effort into really reading about this stuff, it's very unlikely you would know. So this is not something you would learn in school. It's just not something that you will ever come across, to be very honest.
True.
And yeah, and the thing is, if you want to know where she is now, we can tell you because we know exactly where she is. After the emergency, which was in 1977, a fresh general election was held to constitute the next Lok Sabha. And Indira Gandhi, of course, lost heavily in this election.
Surprise.
Because despite the world being a cruel, cruel irony, at the very least, we get these small little things peppered in to make us feel a little bit happy. So obviously, among a bunch of other things, Indira Gandhi was blamed entirely for the sterilization agenda. Not that she went to jail or anything. She just lost the election and she came back later. It's fine. Just one term, then she came back. And the thing is, after Indira Gandhi initially fizzled out, Ruksana just also sort of went away. Sanjay Gandhi also turned his back on her over time. And Sanjay Gandhi would just go on to die in a freak accident in 1980 involving his airplane. And after that, Ruksana just sort of faded away from like the public eye.
So, Raghavi, remember that time that you mentioned Ruksana's daughter?
I do.
Okay, so here's a little have you heard of the actress Amrita Singh?
I have.
Okay, don't feign surprise. We both researched this together.
That's
so it turns out her daughter, Ruksana Sultana's daughter, is Amrita Singh.
What?
She was this... she was this extremely popular 80s Bollywood actress, formerly married to Saif Ali Khan and mother to actress Sara Ali Khan and that other one, that Xerox copy of Saif Ali Khan.
Of Saif Ali Khan. Yeah, I've forgotten his name too.
So Ruksana was associated by marriage with the Pataudi family as well.
Social climbing, even at this age.
It just never stops.
It just never stops. I agree. It's a hustle, man. It's a constant hustle. Girl, you get it, girl. You get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she didn't intend to force her child, Amrita Singh,
No.
into this marriage, but it worked. It worked for her.
That's true.
But there's some more gross stuff as well. So, Sara Ali Khan posted a photo on Instagram for Mother's Day some time back.
Okay.
And this photo has her as a baby and she's in the arms of her grandmother, Ruksana Sultana. And her mother, Amrita Singh, is kind of like looking on at this beautiful image. So, the caption for the picture says, Meri maa ki maa, thank you for creating mommy. Hashtag Happy Mother's Day. Which is so messed up because of what her grandmother was up to.
Okay. Yeah, this is really messed up. I want to drop an F-bomb here, but I suppose we cannot. But there is a reason this is so fudged up. Just remember that it's really likely that almost 11 million Indians were forcefully sterilized during the emergency. Also remember that everybody was incentivized to get people sterilized. Hospitals, public servants, doctors, everyone. It was basically it was like a hustle to get people sterilized by this point. Ruksana herself was responsible, as we heard earlier, for 13,000 of these vasectomies. Almost all of them on Muslim men. Like, she was not kidding around. And the thing is, it's not like India's gotten any better at handling all of this stuff, right? Literally, as of February 2020, the Guardian paper had reported that there were healthcare workers in Madhya Pradesh that were asked to convince at least one man each to get sterilized. Otherwise, they would lose their jobs.
What?
Yeah, it's like the order was eventually revoked. Okay, but why does that policy even exist? Why is it an incentive of any sort for other people to turn people in to get sterilized? Like, what the hell?
Ridiculous.
There's nothing to salvage here, okay? Ruksana, she had zero remorse for any of this. As there's also a collection of Ruksana's old interviews that were put together by India Today. We'll send you a link of that in our Substack. She says there very clearly, she says, I personally think there were no excesses committed in New Delhi.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is a woman who forced thousands of people into getting sterilized, stripped away their ability to have children. So just keep that in mind as I read out Sara Ali Khan, her granddaughter's social media caption to Ruksana. She says, thank you for creating mommy. Disgusting. Man, it's just gross.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, we're at the end of the episode. Let's end on a cutesy note. As usual, we're going to do a little musical recap of whatever we've spoken about so far. Nisha, would you like to take us on this little journey, please?
Let's do this. Just another swell day at my diamond boutique. A cutie with sideburns just wanted a peek. Started off as my ice cream buddy. 1975, things got bloody. They dismissed me as a scatterbrained fool, and the others said sterilization was incredibly cruel. It's almost like I just can't win. Sanjay, please tell them that they can't be so grim. Brought glamour to emergency. Bulldozers and fake priests, you say I forced them all. Show me receipts, just quietly go and like my granddaughter's tweets.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. This is a great song, Nisha. This is really,
Thanks.
really well done. Solid uke work. I thoroughly enjoyed the irony of it all.
I really put myself in Ruksana's shoes and I decided to sing.
It really, really shows, especially when you were like, I felt like you wanted to say Sanju, but you stuck with the word Sanjay. I'm very proud of you. That was beautifully done. But yes, this brings us to the end of our episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this as much as we enjoyed putting all this together.
Yeah, and you can find all our sources and case files on our Substack. And you can follow me on Instagram at justnishfulthinking. That is @ just.nishful.thinking. And where can they find you, Raghavi?
Yes, also on Instagram. I'm not any other. It's just my name is Ragi.dose. We'll link all of that into the description of the whole thing. That's it. Please follow us. Please go check out the blog. You'll get a lot of additional information there about this episode, the sources that we put together, stuff about, like I'd mentioned, a series of interviews with Ruksana. Those are really interesting because Madam is quite cuckoo in the head. And I think you'll have a great time reading that up. So yeah.
And we'll see you again on the next episode of Misconduct.
See you guys.